I'm Carolyn Quinn. I am applying for the advanced level facilitator WRAP training in February. As I said, my name is Carolyn Quinn. I am going to do my video. I'm initially going to start talking about the 5 key recovery concepts, which is one of my favorite parts to talk about when referring to WRAP. Oftentimes I find in my area not a ton of people are aware, so I end up spending a lot of time talking about hope, personal responsibility, education, self-advocacy, and support. So I'm going to initially talk a little bit about hope. It is one of my favorite ones to talk about. I end up spending a lot of time talking about, that there is hope that somebody can get well and stay well for a long period of time, that individuals can work towards and meet their goals, and using WRAP as a way to support goal making, and that there's a lot of hope for the future, that you can live a happy and productive life. And that's one of the key pieces that I always take away from my personal self, and do try to share to others. One of the best ways to really talk about hope, I find, is using Mary Ellen Copeland's mom, Kate's story, who was in what might have been called an asylum back then for 8 years, and it was challenging. However, she found a way through peer support, to create a mental health fellowship and to get well to the point where she could come home and enjoy life. And if that's not hopeful back, I believe, in the 50s, I'm not sure what is. I think it's just an amazing story, and I do always like to share the actual written version when I do teach WRAP. In addition, you have personal responsibility, which you're the expert on you. Nobody else can tell you anything better than what you need, what you feel, and what's important to you. You can take personal responsibility in so many ways and really work towards your own wellness. Sometimes that can mean taking back personal responsibility, and that can really help you achieve wellness, happiness, and true life satisfaction, which is really where a lot of personal responsibility comes from. You then also have education, and that's learning as much as you can about any treatments, a career that you want, any lifestyle, any housing, relationships, anything that is going to affect your wellness. And there are so many ways that somebody can go about this, whether it be through free resources like the Copeland Center's website or SAMHSA's website, or reading books. The library is a wealth of information. Trying to find workshops, trying to find support groups, anything that's going to help somebody learn better about how to support their wellness. And oftentimes, just really taking some time for yourself and thinking, how well do I truly know myself? And really kind of working from there. The 4th key recovery concept is self-advocacy. And, that's really going for it for yourself, through courage and through persistence and determination, and really just trying to come about and support yourself, and, believing in yourself. And oftentimes I find, both from my personal experience and for other people, that can be the most challenging. Knowing the Bill of Rights, which you can spend a lot of time, and every time I personally look at the Bill of Rights, I pick up something a little bit differently. Lately, I have really enjoyed having the right to make mistakes and to learn from them, and reminding myself that it doesn't have to be perfect immediately. And also, a go-to favorite of mine is to be happy. That you have the right to be happy. And I think that also adds many different aspects of the key recovery concepts, because you determine what happiness is. Our last key recovery concept is support. And it's really looking at who is supportive to you and making sure you surround yourself with these people. So, do they care about you? What's the difference between somebody having empathy and sympathy for you? Really looking at, is empathy, are they understanding? Are they trying to share feelings that you're having? Or are they throwing pity at you, which would be more sympathy. It's ideal to have 5 people in your inner circle and who can support you. It's not always ideal. And sometimes when I have more time, I talk a little bit further about that. But really just looking at who is somebody who's going to be in your corner, who's going to advocate for you, who is going to follow out wishes that you have set when you're unable to. And I think most important, who's going to listen to you? Who is really going to listen? And that goes back to the empathy. So we just covered in a flash the 5 key recovery concepts of hope, personal responsibility, education, self-advocacy, and support. And there are those 5 pieces that many things that we talk about moving forward, really that's where it comes back to. To look at the traditional WRAP, and I tend to call it the WRAP backbone. You have your wellness toolbox, your daily maintenance plan, triggers and an action plan for them, early warning signs and an action for them, when things are breaking down and an action plan, a crisis plan, and a post-crisis plan. And that's where we'll spend a majority of the rest of our time today. Maybe one of my favorite topics, I have a lot of favorites when looking at WRAP, is tools. And a wellness toolbox is really looking at different tools and bringing them together. And a tool is defined by the person, and it's a simple, safe, free, and non-invasive way to support yourself. And a tool is really anything that's going to help keep you well and stay well. And if you're not feeling well, will help you get back to that point. So I always use the example that you cannot use a hammer to build a whole house. It's a very key piece. It's a great tool, but it's not the only tool. So it's really important to look at and having an ever-growing list. I use my phone and have my WRAP app. Don't want to say that 5 times fast. And I'm always adding. And oftentimes it'll be when I'm talking to somebody, them sharing a new tool, and I think, ooh, I want to try that. And just adding it right in there and being able to go back later when I need to and add to it. So, like I said, you want to build a great multitude of tools, and it's an ever-growing list. And you're really going to think what works best for you. So one of my go-to tools might not be yours. And one of the best examples that have come out of me teaching WRAP workshops is that I always share the example that I love taking a shower. A nice hot shower after a stressful day, can process it, use fun soaps, etc., etc. That's a big wellness tool for me. And it's one of those that I can go to often, and it does help. And somebody shared, well, a shower is just a huge trigger sometimes for me because I can get wrapped up into rituals and I can end up spending hours in the shower and I don't want to and I don't mean to. So just knowing that it's that time of the day that I need to take a shower can even be challenging. So I love adding that to my already go-to example because it really shows that you know yourself best. And taking that personal responsibility and really identifying what's going to be useful for you. So you want an ever-growing list, keep adding to it, and that's your wellness toolbox. And you end up pulling from the toolbox throughout a majority of the rest of the WRAP as you create action plans and different things like that. So our next piece is our daily maintenance plan. And our daily maintenance plan is really something that you're going to use every day and can be really important to make sure that you look at every day. So initially, you just want words to describe yourself. So for me, I would talk about when I'm well, I'm going to be empathetic. I'm going to be personable. I'm going to be excited about a lot of things like WRAP. I'll be detail-oriented and organized. And that's something that I know that if I'm hitting upon those marks, I'm well. For somebody else who maybe when they're in crisis, they're very talkative. However, maybe when they're well, they're a little bit more laid back. So it can be really important to identify, hey, this is what I think of myself as. This is how I would describe myself when I'm well. And if you're looking at it every day, it's just a nice reminder. And it can also be a bit of a tool to recognize you know what, this past week I haven't really been that talkative, or I haven't been that laid back, whatever it may be for the person. So that's the first part of your daily maintenance plan. The second part is things you need to do. You want to be careful not to have too many. However, it's important to just hit upon the go-tos. So for me, I have to have coffee. I have to have a water bottle by me. I need to listen to NPR every day. I feel connected to the world that way, and it helps ground me. And I got to take care of my dog. They're kind of those important ones, and the shower that I already mentioned. But you don't want it too big, because then it can be on a bad day, oh, I don't think I can hit upon it, so why even try hit any of them? So it's that fine line and that balance, and you might need to go back and edit it at times. The third piece that you have in your daily maintenance plan are things you might choose to do, or something that you need to do less often. So my best example is it can be from mopping the floor and paying the bills to your bucket list. So it can be the things that, hey, you got to pay your bills every month. Or hey, once a year I go on vacation, or once in a lifetime I want to see the Eiffel Tower. So it can really be a great space to also add goals and use the WRAP as a way to achieve some of those goals in a format that is something that you already use and that's approachable. So we're going to kind of our third piece in the WRAP backbone. We have talked about the wellness toolbox and the daily maintenance plan. Now we're going to talk about triggers and also the action plan that goes along with triggers. Triggers are external events and circumstances that you don't really have control over. It's typically a normal reaction. However, it is uncomfortable. So it could be anywhere from getting an unfortunate bill in the mail you weren't expecting, a traumatic event. Here in South Jersey, Hurricane Sandy really did have some trauma for many people. It could be a car accident, an anniversary date, you name it. It's going to be different for everybody, and you might not know that you're experiencing a trigger for the first time because it's never happened before, or you might take some time and think about it and say, you know what, every time after so-and-so comes to visit me and stays at my house for a week, I then need to take 2 weeks to recover from that. Maybe that's a bit of a trigger. So really looking at that and thinking about what you're going to do when these triggers happen ahead of time, and really kind of create that action plan. So anything within your action plan that's going to support you and help you. So I always kind of use this if-then scenario. So if I sit next to somebody who is playing really loud music and there's nothing I can do about it, I then, as my if that happens, then I take Advil. So if a trigger happens, what's the then? That's your action plan. So for your triggers, it can be important to kind of have a wide, vast option. And it might just be making sure that you hit upon your daily maintenance plan every single day on top of 1 or 2 extra things. Our fourth piece of WRAP is your early warning signs, and that's the next piece on the WRAP backbone. Early warning signs, unlike triggers, are more internal. However, they can accompany triggers. They can be a reaction to a stressful event, but they could also be unrelated, and you're not really sure where they come from. And it can be something, a good example of an early warning sign could be forgetfulness, being increasingly irritable. One that I know that I end up feeling before I'm cognizant of it is deep pain in here, and you're kind of walking around like that. So really kind of looking at, your full body and aches and pains. And that's something that I always have as an early warning sign. It's going to be different for everybody, just like triggers. And then you're going back to that if-then scenario. If I have aches and pains in my shoulders, then I'm going to make sure I take a hot bubble bath, and that could be your action plan. It's always great to be specific with some of the pieces, so you kind of have that when you're stressed out and you're experiencing those early warning signs, or back when we were talking about triggers, you kind of have that plan already in place, so you don't have to worry about that on top of already feeling anxious, stressed, or XYZ. Our fifth piece of our WRAP backbone is when things are breaking down and the action plan. When things are breaking down, it's a serious situation. And I tend to give the example that if you're on the cliff, you're right at the edge. If you do nothing, you're going to fall off. If you do something, you do that action plan, maybe you can prevent crisis. But you're almost there, but you're not there yet. The situation is serious, potentially even dangerous. However, you still have within your power to make changes. And that tends to be, for me, a good way to identify if it's when things are breaking down or a crisis. Once somebody hits crisis, they have no control over what they can do to support their own wellness. When things are breaking down, they still have that power and ability. Immediate, assertive action to prevent crisis has to happen, and it's important. So being detailed and creating a must-do list in your action plan can be most effective with when things are breaking down. So for example, example of when things are breaking down is maybe somebody stays in bed for 3 days, or somebody is unable to sleep for more than an hour 5 days in a row. So that would be when things are breaking down, and the action plan could be talking to your doctor, going for an extra hour run, and it could maybe be a handful of things in your action plan that you must create, and it's just something to help support you. If this is happening, I got to go right to this. So that was the 5th piece of our WRAP backbone, and before we hit the crisis plan, I just want to re-review. So we talked about wellness toolbox. We talked about the daily maintenance plan. We talked about triggers and the trigger action plan, early warning signs and the action plan, and we just completed when things are breaking down in the action plan. The 6th kind of piece of that WRAP backbone is the crisis plan. And a crisis plan can actually be made specifically into a advanced directive. In New Jersey, we call them a PAD, or Psychiatric Advanced Directive, which with just a simple signature, either of the completed WRAP crisis plan, or there are other forms that can be used, it can be registered with the state, the Department of Mental Health, Division of Mental Health and Addiction Services, In your crisis plan, you're going to pull back from your daily maintenance plan what you're like when you're well. Indicators when others need to take over. So these are really the signs that, you know what, I crossed the line, I'm off that ledge when things are breaking down and I am in crisis, and I, as somebody in crisis, don't have the ability to affect and support my wellness, and this is how other people will know. Again, details like unable to sleep for more than 1 hour 7 days in a row. You kind of hit that threshold. So you'll have that. The 3rd part of your crisis plan is who you want involved and who you don't want involved. You also want to include any healthcare details, doctors' names, phone numbers, what they treat you for, and with what medications. So oftentimes this is the part of your crisis plan that is most often altered or updated. You're also going to have unacceptable and acceptable treatments. The 6th part of the crisis plan is any home, community, respite treatment, what you would want and what you don't want. You then also have hospital treatment places that you want to go and you don't want to go. You also then have what you need other people to do. So for example, I love my cousin dearly. He is not very warm and fuzzy. His job would be to make sure he communicates with my job that I am going to be out and pays my bills, as opposed to his wife, who's more like a sister. She'll be more involved in making decisions related to my current mental health treatment. So it's important to kind of have all different areas of that identified. In addition to that, you can have when supporters no longer need to use the plan. And this is really where you're saying, hey, you know what? I'm out of crisis. Let's go to post-crisis. The post-crisis plan is the 7th piece of our WRAP backbone. And unfortunately, oftentimes, like in a true WRAP training, we're going to fast forward through it quite fast. So in a post-crisis plan, It's really about time when you're healing from the crisis and not taking on too much all at once. So for some people, it might be, I'm going to feel most like myself if I'm doing my laundry. Somebody else might say, I hate doing laundry when I'm well. That's the last thing I want to take back on to help myself. So it's really just kind of creating this timeline for resuming responsibility, learning from and reflecting from the crisis, and then apologizing and thanking anybody who was involved in it. And really just taking the time to take care of yourself. And that's what the post-crisis is. So that was the fast food version of WRAP and everything that it can involve. We started out talking about the 5 key recovery concepts of hope, personal responsibility, education, self-advocacy, and support. And then we went over the WRAP plan. We talked about the wellness toolbox. We talked about the daily maintenance plan. We talked about triggers and the action plan, early warning signs and the action plan, when things are breaking down and the action plan, the crisis plan, and the post-crisis plan. And hopefully I've given you a taste of information that would make you interested enough to take a full training on what WRAP is. Thank you. Again, my name is Carolyn Quinn.